Hello, hello, hello. It's been a while since I've actually been here, but so you know this, I've been graying, right? It's because I've been graying, thriving, and striving. So I just wanted to check in, see what's been going on um, with others, but also kind of share with you the journey that I've been on with myself. Okay. So many of you know that I have been married for the last 6+ years. And that's been a big part of me recognizing who I am and searching for my identity and wanting to also deal with the hurt spaces in my life. Okay. Um, so that's one thing that I've been navigating. The other thing that I've been navigating is relationships with people, with my friends. Like, who am I to them? Who are they to me? How do we grow? How do we move, through life together? And when do you just end those relationships that are not no longer moving? You know what I mean? In the same space. I was actually talking to my best friend this morning, and we're talking about several things, right? Because that's what girls do when they get together. They talk about several things. It's never one topic. You go through like 15 topics, and you come up with something. You may stick. Something may stick. And one of the things that definitely stuck was more so the transition that I've been on when it comes to navigating my sense of self, right? And how that reflects in my relationship with my husband and how that reflects in my relationship with my friends. Okay? So, being West Indian, the mindset oftentimes is like people tell you what to do. And so, my husband normally sees me like something that he's always said to me is like, "Yo, you're not feminine. You're not a feminine person." And talking to my best friend about that, we started looking at what femininity looks like. And she really brought some good things to my attention. Okay? Let me zero back a little bit. Let me move back a little bit. I went out with a friend last night, did a little dancing, and in that just hanging out, we had an exchange. And I remember just kind of like, I remember my friend saying, "You're guarded." And I remember like just kind of just thinking that by this friend telling me that I'm guarded, it was more so them telling me that I was not feminine enough. Like I was not soft, I was like hard. And it made me start looking at myself, looking at my upbringing. My mom wasn't the softest person, right? My mom is a nice person. She's more on the quiet side, but she's not soft. Verbally, vocally, she will repeat of shreds. She's not soft. My dad wasn't soft. My dad was more so like an aggressive type of dude. You know what I'm saying? And then I grew up with brothers. I grew up with brothers. So I didn't know how to be in tune with my femininity. Like maybe the most was like, okay, I am gonna go. I'm gonna wear a dress because my mom made us dresses, and we were Pentecostals, so my mom made us wear My mom made us wear, dresses. We had no choice anyway. But it's like I was climbing trees. You know what I'm saying? I was doing all of that. I was outside in the yard. I was doing certain things. I was the equivalent of mowing the lawn. I was out there basically like hoeing and axing and digging and planting peas and corn. And I was a farmer, a little farmer with my mom. That's the stuff that my mother would do. We would plant peas, corns, potatoes, anything, provision, all that stuff. That whole feminine thing. And when it came to like being in the kitchen, my mom never forced us as the girls to be in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So it's like I just that whole idea of what femininity looks like, in the perspective of a man, and a West Indian man, I'm just like, yo. So then I started looking at my experience as a child and the things that I had to go through when it came to men, realizing that I dealt with abuse at a very young age, right? That when my father would discipline us, he would be like he would beat you, where you I mean, I had scars. He didn't beat us a lot, but when he did, it was extreme. That my mom wasn't a place where I fully could rest emotionally. That my brothers weren't really that space for me either, that my sister wasn't that space. So I didn't have a space where I could just be content with the side with Trisha as an emotional being or a nurturing being. I didn't know that. I guess the only thing I knew was to be protective of myself, to really just look out for me. Um, and so that looked like sometimes fighting with my brother, you know what I'm saying? My older brother, having disagreements with my younger brother, like fighting with whoever came at me. It's like I learned to defend myself because there were points in my life where nobody defended me. I was on my own. So it's just that whole manner of like being married and then somebody wanting to you to be something that you never were. And I see that on the side of him too. I see that with him where I want him to be softer to me, but he didn't know. Like he doesn't have that because he grew up with a mom who you would think that he'd be soft, but nah, she seemed like she had to be tough because he's a tough dude. Period. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm looking at how we expect people to show up in relationships, right? And when we're expecting them to show up in relationships, we're not thinking about how they actually, what they've experienced that's made them who they are. All we're knowing is that we just want them to be what we want them to be. And sometimes what that ends up as is you constantly nitpicking and trying to get somebody to change and be something that they weren't meant to be. Only God can change a person, and a person has to be willing to be changed, right? So what comes to my mind is Saul. Saul had a low self-image. God was willing to change it, but Saul couldn't let him change it because Saul his insecurity, his lack of connectedness to self and to God made it hard for God to work with him. So he got done away with. Whereas David probably had some of the same struggles, but David had a desire for God to help him and to make him better. And so sometimes we find in marriage people who see themselves, people who don't see themselves. I had that thought this morning. What makes it hard sometimes to exist in a marriage? One person, both of you may show up with the same problems. Both of you may, like this very thing that you may be saying to your spouse that they do is the same thing that they're saying to you that you do. But here's what makes the difference. What makes the difference is that the person who sees themselves and is like, oh my gosh, you know what? Maybe you are right. Maybe you are right. Maybe I can work on this. Maybe this is true. Versus the other person who says, that's not true. That's not true. And they're not willing to see themselves and work on themselves. They're not willing to. You know what I'm saying? Leads me back to Adam, who was so quick to throw Eve under the bus. So quick to be like, that ain't me. Adam made a choice. He made a choice to eat the fruit knowing it was wrong, but he never took responsibility for that. He instead be like, it was Eve's fault. Both of them disobeyed God. Both of them disobeyed God. Both of them were influenced by a power other than God. And Adam being the man, he could have said, yo, you gave me orders, God, but I chose not to honor those orders because I wanted to follow my wife. He chose not to see himself. And so often this stuff shows up in our relationships where we choose not to see ourselves. We choose not to see ourselves. Marriage is a hard thing. Marriages break up because sometimes people are not willing to see themselves. It also breaks up sometimes because there's that lack of trust. Can I trust you with what you tell me that you see? Is it really true? Can I trust your voice, or are you just trying to break me down? So what does that lead us? It makes sense to be truly in tune with you, because when you're in tune with you, nobody has to really tell you all about yourself. You kind of see that because you're connected to you, you're connected to the Creator. So you can now navigate how you show up in relationships, and you're able to be like, when something is off with you, within you, you're able to see that. So then if somebody comes and tells you what you are or what you're not, you already know what it is. But even so, when it comes to marriage, when you've decided now to take a step and get married, you're now choosing to partner with a person. You're choosing to let them into an intimate and sacred space. And if you can't trust them to be in that space, you should have never married them in the first place. But sometimes, that leads me back to another thing. Sometimes we marry out of where we are at the moment. That space of like brokenness, that space of I need this person to, or I found the one. Man, you are the one. Okay? You are the one. It's not another person that's the one. It's you. You are the one. And when you can get to that space where you start realizing you are the one, then you show up as the one. And whoever comes has to measure up to you being the one. But when you're going with that sense of, I need you to complete me, you are the one who will save me from all my struggles. You're the one that's going to live the pain out of my life, which is how I showed up. You become very disappointed. And you spend a lot of your time trying to get somebody to show up the way you want them to show up versus just you showing up. So here's my pledge to myself. And I don't know if you're willing to pledge this to yourself, if you're on the same journey that I'm on. My pledge to myself this year is to really take time to know me. It's not to focus on somebody else's expectations of me. It's not to focus on my expectations of them. All the stuff that's coming up, right? What am I willing to do about that? What am I willing to do about that? Because there's some stuff that's been coming up, right? For me and maybe even for you. What are you willing to do about that? You can blame everybody else around you, but at some point you're not responsible for what's happening in you. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do? You can smoke it away, you can drink it away, you can party it away, you can sex it away. You know what I'm saying? You can do all of the different things. You can work it away. You can work all you want. But guess what? If you don't sit with yourself and deal with that stuff, whether with a professional therapist, right? Or just with God, or just with yourself. It's almost like the work. It's you'll stay stuck. You'll stay stuck. And your focus will always be expecting somebody to come in and save you, or expecting that when they change, everything will change. Maybe if you change, things will start changing. All right? So my name is Trisha. I'm an LMSW, licensed master social worker. I work as a therapist. I also work with people who deal with a lot of trauma. Specialize in places like people deal with depression, anxiety. And I'm also learning a lot more now about schizophrenia and bipolar and antisocial personality disorder. And so if you ever want to reach out to talk, you just want somebody to talk to, you're looking for a therapist, hey, feel free to reach out to me. Take care.